Kyuquot Sound. They call it a place of many winds. Pounded by rain, wind, and the Pacific Ocean, Kyuquot Sound lies exposed on the northwestern perimeter of Vancouver Island. Here, the rugged mountains of the British Columbia coast tumble into a myriad of inlets and bays. For decades, the inhabitants of tiny Kyuquot Village have made fishing a way of life. For thousands of years before them, the ancestors of the Kyuquot band also fished, hunted, and lived in the forest of Kyuquot. And beginning tens of thousands of years before them, life forms here have been evolving into a coastal ecosystem unlike any other place in the world. Today, the area has blossomed into what is known as a coastal temperate rainforest. Dr. Ken Lertzman teaches resource management at Simon Fraser University.
Rainforests in general are a threatened kind of ecosystem. They form in a variety of ways the most productive forests on the planet. The temperate rainforests are the most massive forests in terms of sheer biomass on the planet. They tend to have very tall canopies, very deep canopies with several layers, and they represent in both cases very intricate, highly developed ecosystems that are particularly dependent on a peculiar combination of temperature and precipitation.
Trees tower 25 stories high over the forest floor. In the Kyuquot area, some have been known to reach the grand old age of 2,000 years. Others began to grow as tiny saplings in the Dark Ages. Relative to these old giants, we are newcomers here. We know little about this old-growth forest, and less about how these trees have survived so long. We are now discovering that within this ancient forest, there is a complex and interconnected living system where nothing is wasted and everything depends on something else. Hundreds of plant species spread their leaves in a crowded jungle of greenery. In turn, they support a variety of animals which depend on this type of old-growth forest environment. The Tashish Valley, located in the heart of Kyuquot, is one of the few ranging grounds of Roosevelt elk on Vancouver Island. Coastal old-growth forests are always changing. When a tree finally falls down, it lays the foundation for a whole new community of life. Some of these trunks will take up to 400 years to decompose, slowly releasing nutrients that are recycled back into the living trees. This is fortunate in a land where the soil is thin and these nutrients are scarce. In our quest to reduce the greenhouse effect, we have discovered that the temperate rainforests, because they have so much biomass, are an important carbon sink or storage bin. As we unlock billions of tons of carbon dioxide driving our cars, these ancient forests are absorbing and storing carbon in one of the most efficient forms that we know of, trees. A single tree in Kyuquot Sound may have 60 million needles, all working to absorb carbon dioxide. These needles also absorb water from the fog and clouds that characterize this coast. How many thousands of liters of water does each tree absorb, store, and respire? Every inch of ground here is subject to 7 meters of rain a year. It is the forest that provides an umbrella in the harsh winter months of rain and that provides a cool and wet environment in the hot summer months. In an endless cycle, this water is soaked up by the forest and fed slowly into a network of streams that tumble into the waiting Pacific Ocean. 5 different species of salmon struggle back up into the protection of the forest to spawn in gravel beds hidden from the sea. After a short time in estuaries, the juvenile salmon head out to sea through the waters of Kyuquot Sound. The sound provides a variety of marine ecosystems, from surf-pounded rocks to sheltered sandy coves. In these rich intertidal areas, life is growing on life. Stellar sea lions and sea otters are some of the marine mammals which can be seen feeding off the richest of the sound, which also provide a sustainable economic resource for the local population. Richard Leo, chief of the Kyuquot Indian Band, explains how the native peoples view the forest and ocean resources.
Well, traditionally, I guess Kyuquot has always been the Aboriginal people's territory, and it's always been used to maintain the way of life, and basically everything is used from the forest to the ocean, and we don't consider forestry or fisheries. We consider it as a whole, as one, from the forest on down to the sea.
Culturally modified trees, or trees that were stripped for bark but left standing, mark areas that have been used by natives for centuries. Burial sites where canoes once hung in trees are indications of the sacredness of the area. Under present forestry guidelines, an old-growth forest is described as decadent, and our policy in British Columbia is to liquidate all the old growth in the province outside of our parks. Don Sluggett is the district manager for the Ministry of Forests.
Well, I think in the past the intent of the government was to replace decadent timber with thrifty, immature timber. And if you're looking at it from strictly a wood production unit, second growth stands will produce more timber than an old growth stand.
Clear cutting is the method of logging used by most companies in British Columbia. Almost all of Kyuquot Sound is destined to be logged. The effects are easily seen near the village of Kyuquot. Mount Paxton, climbing 2,000 feet above sea level, was clear-cut from shoreline to the mountain ridge and down the other side. Other areas nearby look similar. The soil that was once protected by the old-growth canopy has washed away after a few seasons of the heavy rains typical of the West Coast. Like much of this coast, the slopes here are naturally unstable and the soil thin and poor. Without the protection of the forest, soils bake under temperatures that increase by as much as 10 degrees. In the winter, landslides run rampant. The natural water regulator is gone, so streams run wild and silty.
The people that are involved in it don't realize the impact it has on the whole system, because we understand it as I indicated at the beginning, that it's a one system. It's not just a forest that they're looking at or they're getting the trees from, but it's a whole system, that total chain reaction. You kill the trees, you kill the side hills, you kill the plants, the herbs in it, and it directs the river. And the river starts to direct the bottom of the ocean. And this is what we have right now.